Hey everyone, welcome to my tutorial on creating a realistic rock in CG. This is just one of the chapters which I'm putting out for free for the whole tutorial. You can get all the other videos on my Gumroad, so this is kind of like a taste test for you guys. And if you get something out of it and enjoy it, then yeah, feel free to click the link down the bottom to my Gumroad channel, and yeah, you can download all the other chapters. They include going over rock reference, texturing, lighting, shader development, and then just adding like final touches to the render. Yeah, so that's basically it. I also provide, as well as the just over 3 hours of video footage, I also provide the OBJs which I used in the tutorial, and the scene files and the textures which I baked out of Mari, and the displacements which I baked out of Zbrush. So you basically get everything to work with to just basically recreate what I have here, and yeah, hopefully you can also learn a thing or two in the process. So hope you enjoy it, and yeah, any support is really appreciated, so thank you. Okay, so starting up in Zbrush, I've just opened up the scene and then I went to Document, New Document. That'll resize your viewport to your screen, and then I'm going to go over here and select Cube 3D, drag it out, hit T for edit mode. Then I like to change the material. I've got a bunch loaded in here, just use this one. And then what you need to do when you're using one of these just objects straight out of Zbrush is you need to make Polymesh 3D. Otherwise you're not going to be able to use all the functions on it. So this makes it usable. Then we'll go to Geometry, we'll go to Dynamesh, and we'll set the Dynamesh pretty high. Let's go 256, and then Dynamesh this. And that's roughly 400,000 polygons, so that should be dense enough for what I need to do. I want to keep it pretty dense for this rock creation stage, just because otherwise I find if you start on too low, like subdiv level, or even though we're not using subdivs, like number of polygons, you end up having to go back through and like rework a lot of like edges and things like that to sharpen them up to make them look effective. But if you just start at a higher polygon count, you won't have to go back as often and clean areas up. So yeah, I'm going to set it to perspective just to give us a bit of perspective here. I just like to use perspective when I'm sculpting rocks. And the first tool we're going to use is when you hold down Control Shift, and then with that held down, if you select here, you get this list of brushes. We're going to use the clip curve to start with. So select that. Clip curve, if you hold down Control Shift and drag, it's going to bring out this line, and then you can move it around. You can hit Alt. If you tap Alt, it turns it into a curve, and then we'll cut with the curve. Or if you double tap Alt, you'll get a corner, which is really cool. And then you get it just slices it like this and just flattens the geometry out onto that line. So another thing, the way you know which way it's going to cut is determined by where that gradient is. So it's going to cut whatever is on that side of the gradient. So if I do this here, it cuts that whole piece. But we don't want to do it that way, we want to do it this way. Where the gradient is, it's going to cut that, and we're good. So, oh, and if you drag it out, but say you've done it the wrong way, and you don't want it to cut the way the gradient's facing at the moment, you can hold down Alt, and then that'll gray out the line, and then you let go, and that's actually inverting it. So that's an inverted cut. And so basically we're going to use this tool to make this look less like a cube and more like a rock. So I'm just going to quickly go through here and just start slicing and cutting and removing the general shape of a rock, just so we have something more interesting to work with than a perfect cube, because there aren't many rocks which are perfect cubes, so we want to get away from that as much as possible. There you see me using the double tap Alt to get the corner, and then I held down Alt at the end because I wanted it to go in the other direction. I wanted to remove it from the opposite direction than where it was set up, if that makes any sense at all. Okay. Trying to just get rid of any really sharp corners or shapes. See this straight line? I don't like that, so I'm going to cut that off. And I don't like that straight line either, so I'm going to cut that off. Yeah, so we're getting more of a different shape than just a cube. Okay. So yeah, I'm kind of liking this. I think this is a pretty solid place to start with. So I'm going to remesh this now. So holding down Control and dragging in the viewport will remesh the Dynamesh. It'll take a few moments to do that, but that's done. Now, this is still a bit of an odd shape for a rock. A lot of rocks you'll find, like I'm going for a bit more of a sedimentary rock, so it's like a layered sort of flat rock rather than a round one. Due to like erosion and things like that, it's not very often that you'll get a, like, even though this isn't round, it's quite boxy, the general silhouette is round, and that's what I want to stay away from. I want more of a flat and long shape. So to do that, I'm going to use the transpose tool, and I'm going to start by flattening this out, and then just increasing the length, and already, just by doing those two movements, we've got something which is no longer round in shape, but more of a long prism. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I might actually change the silhouette a bit by just doing that, cutting out a chunk. Oh, actually, let's do it on the piece here. Yeah. There we go. So we cut that out, and maybe I'll also cut this out. I'll remesh that, and now we're getting these funny bits. That's just because it's flattened along that part. So I'm just gonna cut them out. Just snap them back to the surface, and then that removes them. But yeah, this is looking like an interesting shape for a rock. So really, I'm just at the moment looking for silhouette. Just, yeah, really silhouette and just form in general. I don't like how flat this is and how flat the bottom is. I'm going to leave the bottom as is, but I'm going to give this a bit of an angle to it, like that. Which is then going to give us this issue again. So from this angle, I'm going to cut this out again, and then I'm going to remesh. And now I think, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the general shape we have here. It looks pretty. I don't want something that's too, I don't know, basic. I just want a shape which looks kind of cool. So, and this part of the process, that's what it's all about. It's just getting a cool base shape which will then kind of turn into a rock. So a simplified rock this should be, just where the major plane changes are and things like that. So next step is going to be breaking up these edges. To do that, I'm going to use my favorite rock brush. If you either click on Lightbox or hit the comma key, it'll open this up. Then you can go to Brush, Trim Smooth Border, and then we'll use a Square Alpha. So it's the Trim Smooth Border brush, and we're just going to start going to town here. Now you can see from cutting this up, it's dropped our active polygon count. So I think I'm going to increase this up to 512 now, just to give us some more resolution. Resolution's more important. So something that happens is, even though this is set to 512 and I just did it, I noticed this polygon count didn't change. And that's because sometimes when you're working with Dynamesh, you have to make a slight adjustment to the mesh and then click and drag, hold down control and drag in the viewport to then remesh it. And as you can see, the progress is now taking longer, which means it's generating more polygons, and now you can see it's at 750,000. So now we have more density and we're ready to go. So with that brush, the Trim Smooth Border Brush selected, I can now start coming in, and basically this part of the process is to break up these really perfectly machined edges. So I'm just going to run along here, all of the edges, and just really break them up so they don't look so perfect, because it looks very unnatural having such perfect straight edges. So yeah, that's basically what's going to happen for the next few minutes, just me going through and chipping these away. I just kind of imagine that like the rock might have, I don't know, gotten eroded and then fell off the face of a cliff and then went down the hill and like smashed on this corner, so we blow out a big chunk here. And the way I use this brush is I kind of just like aggressively tap it in like just at random points, because the way the brush ultimately works is it samples the normal, and the normal is the direction that the current face is facing. And then so as you can see, if I'm moving the brush in circles here, it's doing absolutely nothing. But as I move off, it's going to start sampling this lower section, and now as soon as I drag back, it's going to start pushing this whole face down to that level that it sampled. And that's how it works. So I'm basically just quickly sampling and cutting out certain areas by rapidly tapping the surface of the rock. And so yeah, I'm just going to do this over the whole, all of the edges. Just get some interesting silhouette breakup, but also some just, yeah, general breakup on the surface. Got to do it to all the edges. And it just gives us more variety of planar changes as well, which is always good, because there's a lot of planar changes in nature usually, well, on rocks that you find in nature. Now by holding down Alt, I can actually reverse. Instead of pushing in, it pulls out. And so yeah, that's how I got that detail there. Yeah, sometimes I really like to just blow out a whole section to really affect the silhouette, like you can see there, and a bit there, and a bit here. It's just really affecting the silhouette, which is ultimately what I want, because some smaller breakups, breakup to the edges will help sell this. Now it started getting a bit chunky there, so I'm just remeshing by control dragging in the viewport once again. And because we're working with a higher density mesh in Dynamesh, it just takes a bit longer to remesh the surface. Okay, so we're getting there, moving across the surface, doing all the edges. Just blow this one out. So something that I like to do here is I just really went crazy on this part, and we ended up getting this big drop off. So now if I sample this here, it's going to really push that in, and we're going to get a huge planar change, which is great, because it's stuff like that which will make your rocks look more realistic. So now I'm remeshing because it's got a bit messy down here. It's taking a bit of time, and then I can hold down Alt and fill this part in, and then cut that back, and we got a pretty good layer here. Like, that is pretty nice. And if this was a sedimentary rock, which it could be, we'd have like layers going this way. So sometimes what I'll do is, if I want to add in a bit of that layering effect, I can just like start cutting in here and then just add like an edge in here, which is a detail which can help sell the rocky look. Ooh, got to make sure you sample that edge though. Yeah, that'll do. So I'll remesh that because it got a bit chunky, and then we'll just rework this area a little bit. Alright, so we can come in and like push this section in. Cool. Alright, just getting like different details. There's many different, well, not as many different details, but just different details to really break up the silhouette and the shape. Like this could probably break out a bit more too. And then I'll remesh because this got really chunky here, really crunchy. Nice. So it's given us some really cool breakup. Nice big crack. Now these flat surfaces are like, they just don't look that natural, so I don't want to break them all up too much, otherwise it'll look a bit too repetitive all over. But I'm gonna try and break them up a little bit, and I'm using a similar technique that I was showing you just before, where I like rub it across the surface and then sample an area and then just continue kind of bouncing it across the surface to pick up different levels. Maybe make the brush a little bit smaller to get some more high frequency details, and basically I'm just trying to create like a sort of layering effect, where there's like heaps of little layers which have kind of like cracked off these flat surfaces. Don't want to go too overboard with it though. That's the tricky part. Just don't overdo it, because then you'll sometimes doesn't look that natural. Yeah, so you get the idea. So now you can see this has got some breakup on it, this face doesn't, and so yeah, you can just see the difference there between the two. Just adds a bit more variety and interest. Yeah, so I'll basically just end up going over the majority of the planar changes and just hacking it out a bit like this. Maybe make the brush a bit bigger in some places, just so we don't have the same sort of frequency all over, same frequency of detail. Yeah, sometimes I might just come in and just really blow out an area if I think it's too similar. Yeah. So yeah, we'll just keep doing this over the whole surface. Alright, sweet. One last face, I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah, just this one, the big one. Make the brush a little bigger, just so we can get through this last bit a lot faster. That's cool, I like that. Sometimes you get some really, what are they called? Happy accidents, and getting some nice layering. And that's another good reason why doing stuff quickly and rapidly and not thinking too much about it is you'll get these cool forms and things happening, which will end up making the rock look more realistic. Okay, I think that is enough breakup. Just a couple more touches. Just get some high frequency stuff in here as well. Getting a good balance of high frequency and low frequency is key. Just like in that reference I showed you at the beginning, which I have on my other screen, you've got areas where you've got a lot of crazy little detail and then a lot of areas where it's flat. Alright, so yeah, looking at the general shape of this rock, yeah, we got some cool stuff going on. But one thing that I've been doing recently with my rocks when I'm sculpting them is, first I'm going to remesh this now that I've done all the detailing that I want to at this point. But a lot of rocks, like when this started out, it had a lot of really straight edges. Now we've broken them up a bit, but you can still see the underlying straightness of these edges. And so it's something that I want to try to get away from, because normally when rocks have been underground and stuff for millions of years, they get really warped and stretched and crushed and squashed. So I tend to use the Move Elastic brush, on a big size, and I kind of like just push and pull some stuff just to give it, well, one thing is to change the shape up a bit, give it a bit more form and shape, but also to give it kind of that squashed sort of look that it's been warped. And so it's key to go around the whole form and just kind of push and pull stuff. Just looking at the general shape of it and just getting some cool silhouette breakup. And just warping it a bit. I just find that it helps to push it into a more sort of natural state, natural form. But yeah, there you go. Like, that's just pushed it around a bit and it's gone a bit wonky, and that's kind of what I want. So alright, I'm just gonna, I don't really like how this is so rolly, so I'm just gonna actually make a new, using the trim smooth border brush, I'm just gonna cut this back. Just create a new planar change there. Just add a bit of complexity, you know. And then once again, add some layering. Like that, and no one will ever know. So yeah. Now, if like I could go over this more and more to just really push it in a direction where I'm really happy with it. At the moment I'm like roughly happy with it, but just so I don't bore you guys to death just pushing this rock around more and more, I am gonna go on to the next step as soon as I add in a couple more details. Okay, alright, cool. So this will do. So next step, we have gotten the general form happening. I'm actually going to kick this out a bit. We've got the general shape and form happening here, and we've got some low frequency details across the surface. Now we need to add some mid frequency details, and then we're going to add some high frequency details. So I bought Quixel, which is a sort of plugin for Photoshop, a little like a week ago, and it's kind of like Crazy Bump if you've used that, but it's like Crazy Bump on steroids. And so basically what it does is you can bring in a picture, like a photo reference of some rocks, and then you can run it through and generate a height map from that image, and it creates a really good result. And so I went through and created like 23 different rock brushes that you can see here. And I'm going to be putting these up on my gumroad for sale, because just for a small cost, because I put a lot of effort into them, and I'm sure you guys, after seeing me use them on this rock, you might want to use them in your own workflows. So yeah, this is brush number 1. I think it does a pretty cool job. The intensity is a bit high by default. It depends on how large you're dragging it out, and also I like to turn on backface masking when I'm using the brushes. Otherwise, when you drag it out, it's going to go through to the other side and invert, and I don't want that to happen. So yeah, as you can see, as I drag this out, you get all these really cool, really sweet details, and like there's a layer in there and a whole heap of stuff. And so like it'd actually look really cool if this crack was running into there, into that like crack there, and then that looks pretty legit to me. So yeah, this part of the process is going to be going over and yeah, just adding in these mid frequency details. But I just realized before we do that, we should create a better mesh out of this. We should get out of Dynamesh, basically. So what we can do is go to Subtool, Duplicate, hide the original, and then go to Geometry, and we're going to lower the Dynamesh resolution, because if we Z-remeshed at this resolution, it's going to end up taking a long time. So it's way faster to send this down to like 64. And remember to move the surface slightly, and then click and drag, and there you go. It's way lower res, but it still has the same silhouette, which is important when we're Z-remeshing. Then set the Z-remesher to 1, the target polygon count. And this digit here is in thousands. So this is 1,000, that's 5,000. 5,000 is the default. But we're going to set it to 1,000, hit Z-remesh, and it's done in no time, which is great. Otherwise it would have taken way longer. Now, with the new Z-remeshed mesh selected, we then also unhide the high-res Dynamesh version, and then we can start projecting onto it. So I'm going to turn off my PA blur, and then I'm going to go Control D, project, Control D, project, Control D, project. And as you can see, as I'm hitting Control D, the polygon count's increasing. Control D, project. And also the projection's taking longer every time I go up a subdiv, because it's getting heavier. So this is going to be the last one I project. As you can see, this is at 400,000, and a general rule that I use is if you select the mesh you're projecting, it's 700,000, and once it's over that threshold, that's when you stop projecting. So I'm under the threshold, now I'm over, so this is the last one I'll project, because the other one was under, if that makes sense. And so it's going to take a little while to project, because there's a lot of information, a lot of polygons, a lot of resolution here. And then we can hide the other one, and we can go up another subdiv to get even more definition, especially from when we're going to be doing the high frequency mesh. So high frequency detail. So I'll go Control D one more time. That'll take us to 6.8 million. So now we can start detailing on this. Oh, not that brush, this one. Because now we have nice topology, we have a really high polygon count, and we're going to be able to get some sweet details out of this. So if I drag that out like I did before, yeah, you can see you get some pretty solid details. So I might drag this one out a few times, maybe get another, try get another crack to line up with that little bit there. That looks pretty sweet, although we are getting a bit of repetitive stuff happening here. Another one that I like is 16. So once again, set this to 15 intensity and backface masking. You gotta do that every time, which kind of sucks for every new brush you open up. But yeah, I really like this one. Creates some really cool effects. So yeah, I basically just went on to CG textures, found a whole heap of textures which I thought looked cool, and then ran them all through Quixel, and then adjusted the settings manually and I did a lot of back and forth testing what settings gave you the best results, and this is just what I found to, yeah, give me good results. So, whoa, that one's pretty intense. Don't want that one. At the moment, I'm just checking some of these just to see if there's some details which will work well. I don't want something that's too intense, just because of the type of rock I'm going for. I'm sure there's going to be other situations where I'm like, whoa, this one will work great, but in this case, yeah, not all of them are going to be what I'm looking for. And that's why I made so many, so I can be really flexible with the ones I use. I'm not using the same ones all the time. But yeah, I like this one, so I'm going to add that one there. That kind of, see, this one is in the same direction as this, so that's cool. And so yeah, I'm just going to go through here and try out all different brushes, and then just start dragging them out on certain faces, just so we don't have too much repetition. But I also want to make sure that I'm not kind of overdoing it. So you can see the intensity on this one's a bit high. That's because I didn't lower it yet. Let's take it down to 15, backface masking on, drag it out. That gives us some pretty cool details. Still might be a bit too intense actually. So let's send this one down to 10. Drag that out. There we go. A bit more subtle. You don't want to go too crazy on all the details. Subtlety is pretty good. Alright, so that's sweet. Let's try another one. And so yeah, as I said earlier, like, these will be available on my Gumroad just for a small price. But yeah, I think they're really powerful, and they'll really help to take your environment rocks to the next level. And hopefully you'll be able to see that once I get through all the texturing and stuff. Now I really like this one because it's got like all these little separate little notches and bits and pieces in there. That's kind of the style that I want to go for. So I'm going to lower this one down to 15 intensity, backface masking, and then drag that out. Yeah, that's creating some really cool surface details. And as you can see, like, a lot of this information kind of gets covered up, but it's still there, but yeah, it just makes it less apparent, which is kind of good because it doesn't look that realistic. It just helps with like plane changes and things like that. So I might go back to 16 because I really liked 16 and drag that one out as well. But yeah, as you can see, we're getting some really cool details going on here. I drag out another one here. But yeah, once again, you don't want to go too overboard with this, because if you like start dragging it out again and again and again, it just starts getting really noisy, and you lose the fidelity of the alphas. So yeah, 16 is definitely one of my favorites which came out, just because it has a really good variation in like surface details. Number 1 is also definitely another one of my favorites. So I'll drag this one out here, just because once again it's got some nice cuts in it. It just looks cool. You can drag it out at different sizes, so it'll give you some more variation again. Might remove that one actually. And then we need one for the end here. Let's try brush 5. What does that look like? It's pretty intense, so let's bring that down to 10, and with a backface mask, and I'll just drag that out. That gives us like some nice subtle breakup. I might add that one here as well, and here. Yeah, but as you can see, we're starting to turn this rocky formation into something that really works. Might drop in brush number 1 again, about here. Yeah, it just adds, like, that just helps so much in that area. It's a really cool one. It just adds like layers and stuff. I really, really like it. Add it in again here. Sweet. Alright. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is what we'll roll with. Another thing that you can do, if you don't want so much detail, like you might want to have areas which are a bit more smooth, you can either use the trim dynamic brush and just like lightly tap over some areas, and what that'll do is it'll look like there's been rubbing occurring between this surface and another rock surface, and just causing some flattening. And so what it'll do is it'll keep those really the deep cracks, but it'll flatten out all the top details, which, like, it's a realistic trait. Like, you'll find that on rocks in nature. So yeah, it's just a detail which I sometimes apply to areas of the rock, just to, I don't know, just adds variation. Variation always helps. Oh, this corner looks a bit like there's not enough detail on it, and also because I'd expect this like to have cracked off or something. I think it'll really benefit from kind of like an intense sort of brush here. Yeah, like look at that, it's kind of stretched. That's not cool though, so let's try something different. Let's try maybe not 16 again. What's 15 like? Yeah, maybe that'll do. No, it's too high frequency. Number 23. It's got some cool stuff going on. We'll just bring that down to 15 with a backface mask. Yeah, it's got some cool forms happening. Actually, let's set that one up with 1. There we go. Yeah, so that just gives it a bit more detail, really. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this, the result here. So next step's going to be adding in the high frequency details. So to do that, we're going to be using surface, noise, and then we're going to go to noise plug, dense, and I like adding like little pitting to the surface. So I'm going to increase the graph a little bit, and then I'm going to turn off mix. I'm going to increase the scale, and I'm going to increase the strength in the negative. Yeah, we're going to want to get like a bunch of high frequency little pits all over the surface. And I can increase the intensity of that. And there you go. That's basically what I want. Might make it a bit more high frequency though, just to help push the scale. Or maybe that was too much. I don't know. Like, kind of looks cool. Like, look at that. Yeah, maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Not too much. Kind of like. Yeah, maybe that's too much. There we go. I think that's cool. So now, rather than applying this to mesh, I'm going to mask by noise. When you apply to mesh, it kind of bloats everything out. You'll see it inflates the surface out a bit. So to get away from that happening, I go mask by noise, which will take a bit of time. But what it'll do is it'll mask out all these little pitting details, and then I can manually punch in a value under deformation, which will yeah, it'll basically push them all in at a certain amount. Alright, cool. Deformation, inflate. So you just tap the little bar and that'll highlight the digit, and then you can go like -10. And that might be too intense. Yeah, that is too intense. So let's try, tap it again, -5. That might be better. Still looks a bit too intense actually. Let's try -3. Alright, I think that'll do. Cool. So yeah, we got this rock. I'm pretty happy with the result. With more time I'd push it further. Like, I'm not, like, this to me doesn't have enough variation to it. It's just too general. This side's got a bit more interest to it, but yeah, you get the idea anyway. So before we go and start texturing this guy, we need to bake out displacements, but also UV this guy. So by holding down Shift and tapping D, we can go to the lowest subdiv level, hit Shift F to turn on the poly frame. Then I'm going to hold down Control, go up here while Control's held down, and then go to Mask Lasso. Then I'm just going to mask half of this surface. Just roughly mask half of it. That, I'm a bit picky about this, but there we go. So I've masked half of it. Now I hit Control W, which is the hotkey to convert what you have masked into a poly group. Next, you can go up to Z plugin, go to UV master, turn off symmetry, turn on poly groups, and just hit unwrap. And just like that, it is done. And then we can go to UV map, morph UVs, morphs it out for you, and that is perfect. We're going to be texturing this in Mari, so we can control the seams and make sure that we don't have any funky stuff happening on the seams, which is great. But yeah, those UVs are definitely usable, just in 0 to 1 space. So now we can come up and we can bake out the displacement. So we can go to Multi-Map Exporter, Displacement. I'm going to export at 8K, which is the maximum for Zbrush, because I'm going for a realistic look and my working background is in film. If we had a hero asset like this, we'd definitely be running this out at 8K. I might even be separating out this object. Depending on how close it gets to camera, I'll separate out the UVs on multiple UV tiles to get even more resolution. So I could get 8K per quarter of the rock if I wanted to. But for this demo, this is going to be fine. So go to displacement map settings, subdiv of baking out from subdiv 1 is what I want. Actually, maybe we'll go from subdiv 2. No, I reckon we'll be fine going from subdiv 1. Okay, so subdiv 1, DP subpix of 2, mid of 0, turn off 3 channel, turn on EXR, 32-bit EXR is what we want. Leave scale, leave everything else. This is how I've done a lot of displacements at work, heaps and heaps. Turn subtool on, and so that exports maps for the visible subtools. And yeah, so now this is ready to bake out. So I'm gonna go create all maps, and then I'm gonna navigate to where I am doing this work. So textures, and I've already, oh, here we go. So that name's gonna be fine for now, and then I'm going to rename it once it exports. I just realized I didn't tell you. Go under file names, and I make sure that my UV tile ID format is UDIM. That's just an easier way. Well, it depends where you like what you're used to, but I find this is the easiest way to read what UDIM tile your UV sits in. So I set that, and also I set my PSD 16-bit format. If it's TIFF, I've found that it struggles to bake out at 32-bit. For some reason, it's a bug, but PSD is what you want it set to. So hit OK, create all maps, navigate to where you want it to go, which is this location for me, and then I'll hit save. And baking out as EXR is way faster than TIFF, so this should be done in no time at all. Then yeah, I'm also going to export out a version of the mesh. Well, we're going to export one version out for Maya, which will be at this resolution, because we're baking out at sub D level 1, so we want the level 1 to go over into Maya for shader dev and texturing. Well, shader dev. And then for texturing in Mari, we're going to want to use a higher res version. I'll probably export the second highest level, subdiv level for Mari, use in Mari. And you'll see why that's important once we get into the texturing stage. So yeah, once this EXR has been written out for the displacement, which it has, it only took 1 minute and 8 seconds, which is really quick. Now I can export. So I always turn off group when I export, just because I've had issues in the past. Sometimes if you have like 2 poly groups and that's turned on, it'll have this separated in the export for some reason. So I have a hotkey up here. It actually exists down here and under export group, but I just moved it manually up to here, so it's just quick and easy for me to turn that off, go export, and then I can locate where I want to export this. Zbrush, OBJ from Zbrush, rock, and then I'm going to export it as, I did a test one here. I'm going to call this high res AO, let's call it B01. Save. And then, as I said, for texturing purposes, I'm going to probably, this is 1.7 mil, 400,000. I think the 400,000 level is going to be fine. Just to be safe, I'm going to go the 1.7. Mari's generally pretty good with high poly counts for texturing. So yeah, that'll do. Make sure group's turned off, export. And now this one's going to go under OBJ to Mari, and then I've got rock high res, and I'm going to call this one B01 as well, and hit save. And yeah, that's about it. So next thing you'll see is we'll probably be in Mari, and yeah, we're going to start going through how I'm going to be texturing this guy. So yeah, see you in there.